The easiest way is just to watch your breath. What happens to your breath? What happens to your heartbeat? How does your heart escalate into a higher kind of octave, and how to bring yourself back to this space of being neutral, where you are operating as the watcher. You are operating as the observer instead of the person who is reacting constantly to the stimulus that is being presented from the external life.
Bea left the corporate fashion industry with a giant leap of faith and now mentors women on how to build self-wealth from their wealth of knowledge and wisdom. She demystifies the spiritual aspects of entrepreneurship and looks at business from the lens of energetics, feminine embodiment, and the quantum field. She teaches the Heal Yourself method, combining science and spirituality through classes, workshops, immersions, and retreats all over the globe. Bea is another incredible friend I've met quite recently on the audio-only social networking app, Clubhouse, and we host many rooms and conversations there together. I'm excited to share this conversation with you here. In this episode, we talk about Bea's journey from years in the fashion industry to finding presence with the essence of life and discovering healing from the inside. You're listening to Going Conscious, the podcast where we discover new ways to live a more conscious life of fulfillment and freedom. Each week, I speak with entrepreneurs, academics, and changemakers who have made big transformations, left unfulfilling lives behind, and found meaning in this new world where purpose drives success. Let's get inspired to live our unique journeys to the fullest. Let's explore the impact we want to make and deepen our understanding of ourselves, each other, and this beautiful world around us. Live your freedom. I'm your host, Nikki Trott. In this episode, we talk about how anything is possible when you're connected to Source, letting part of you die, shedding and surrender, why the breath is the bridge between the conscious and unconscious, the importance of going inside, vipassana meditation, self-healing, the abundance of the universe, and why we shouldn't be scared to do anything. Now, let's go to our conversation. Hi, Bea. Welcome to Going Conscious.
Hi, Nikki. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to hear about your journey today. And I know that, like me, you spent years in the corporate fashion industry. And then you took a huge leap of faith and you changed everything you were doing and arrived at where you are now, with yoga being really a vehicle for you to have the courage to express yourself and your truth. And I know you've also moved around a lot, globally as well. So we'd love to hear from you about this big change. What inspired you to make that big change from the fashion industry?
Honestly, Nikki, I don't think I sort of set into the field of yoga and spirituality wanting to sort of escape my current world, because I really didn't know that I could. Being in the fashion industry for many, many years, that's really what I had known for a big chunk of my life. But yoga, which I found in Los Angeles, this is almost 11 years ago, something like that. I actually found breath work, pranayama, and then meditation, and then the physical yoga. It opened up a very, very intriguing reality in my life, where as if I had returned home. And it was mind-boggling in the beginning, because I really didn't know what I was really doing. I was just doing the techniques and creating kind of a space for myself where I could be present. I was really looking for presence, because I was either very much in the past, very much analyzing what I could have perhaps done differently, reviewing certain things that I had experienced in my life, or I would find myself in the future where I would be rehearsing, or I would be looking for a certain result or an outcome. And I never really knew how to be present with the essence of life itself. And yoga, encompassing everything that I talk about, breath work, meditation, opened up this reality for me that I found myself very, very present. And within that presence, I was able to make a lot of decisions that were stuck. They were sort of embedded within the dark corners of my psyche. And yoga gave me truly a tool and courage to be able to take these bold decisions and really dare to take my life into something that I would never even imagine. And that was really the decision to leave fashion and move completely into teaching spirituality.
Wow, what an incredible journey. I love that breathwork was what really opened you up. I also found breathwork to be a key part of my personal spiritual journey and just really reconnecting with myself and the power that I felt I found within. And and so I would love to know, was there a specific moment or something that happened that made you realize that you had to leave fashion behind and make this big change?
For me, I really got sick of my own story. I got sick of my own dialogue of, well, is this it? Is this life? Is there anything else that is waiting for me? Is this what I really want to do for the rest of my life? Because there was, it was a great industry, but I felt I was empty. I felt really empty. I felt no essence in my career and where it was going to take me, because I kept just chasing something that was perhaps chasing approval, perhaps chasing a higher title, perhaps chasing the next, luxurious handbag. You know what I'm saying? And you do know because you've been there. So it was just chasing something that was outside of me. And I wondered, how long was I going to do that? And really the connection to breath work, connecting to my breath, I really realized that how we breathe is how we live. And I have chronic asthma, I still do. So that was one of the reasons why I went to breath work, was to maybe breathe in a way that was going to help me expand my diaphragm, my body, my lungs, my mind, my soul. So for me, it was really just getting a little bit tired of my own dialogue, of just waiting for something. And what I experienced within the field of spirituality was that anything is possible. Anything is possible when you are connected to source, when you are connected to a higher power, when you are connected to your own self, to your own soul, to your own spirit. And within the fashion industry, there was no such talk about spirituality. And so I felt that the more I was studying yoga, I was a different person. It was like I was two different people. And I really enjoyed my own company when I was in the field of yoga and when I was teaching yoga. And I was saying things and I was teaching things that I knew that I had to listen to my own advice, and I wasn't. And that was the moment, when you ask a moment, that was the moment when I had to take a really good look at my life. Really, really good look of, okay, so in the spirituality, I'm a different person. In the fashion industry, I'm a different person. This is not going to go anywhere. And I like the bee that's more connected, more zen, more grounded, more honest, more truthful, more connected to her own inner power. And it was in that moment where I made the decision to leave my job, to leave people that I no longer kind of connected with, certain relationships that needed to die. So a certain part of me needed to die. And this is also the essence of yoga. At the end of yoga practice, we always take shavasana, which is the corpse pose. And so there's a symbol of, within the yoga practice, within any practice, is that we have to go through an energetic death. And for me to come out to the side where, that I was searching for the lightness, I had to go through the very, very deep, dark shadow in order for me to have an energetic death, in order for me to allow certain ideas, certain patterns, certain limitations that I was placing on myself to completely die in order to experience a rebirth. Now, that part is not easy. It's not easy to leave the things behind where you've been in that industry for decades and that's all you know. But I was so ready, and you know when you're ready. If for the listener, if you're waiting for, that sign that you're going to take the leap to be ready, you are ready now. If you're questioning that, you are ready now, and you have to listen to those signs. And I listened to the sign. I listened to the cue that was within me, which we may call intuition, and I had to take that leap of faith. And I've been doing that ever since. Whatever it is that I am fearful of, it means that I have to do it. It means that I have to act, and that's really how I've been living my life for a pretty long time.
Wow. Incredible. B, I love how you talked about how you felt like you were a different person when you're studying yoga compared to when you're working in fashion, and that you had these two different people that you needed to reckon with. And then the sense of when you left your job, also leaving relationships and allowing that part of you to die so that you could then evolve into who you wanted to be and the path that you were meant to take. So what was the hardest part about that process?
The hardest part was probably just moving through this rediscovery of yourself, which is a lot of shedding that you are experiencing in that moment. And as you experience this shedding, oftentimes that then follows a quite dramatic shift. And that shift is in energy, in frequency, in decision making, in the choices. But there's this essence of surrender that also happens with shedding, where you surrender, the low to make space for the high when we are moving through this sense of growth. So I think the hardest thing was this rediscovery, this inventing, this reinvention of myself. Because if I can, if I can notice it, many other people can notice it, and they did. My family noticed it. My friends who had been, friends with me for a very, very long time, they noticed it. But it was hard because it was like this old self that I had known and lived in, in this body of mine, in this mind of mine for, since birth. It was like this old self was being released and this new self was emerging. And I was just busy being my new self. And, I would definitely find moments of myself going back to the old self, going back to the old story, going back to the old kind of patterns of resistance to change, which is one of the number one things that really hold people back is resisting change, was my spiritual practice. My spiritual practice really, Nikki, kept me secure. Being spiritually secure kept me in this field of possibility, that if I knew that I was spiritually secure in myself, connected to something that was much higher than me, and that I was just simply living this experience that we call life, which is temporary. And so remembering that this life, one life to live, life is short, and as cliche as those words may sound, it really is true. And so for me, it was like, well, if I'm going to continue this life, I might as well continue it with doing something that I love, something that really gives me this sense of purpose. And I never knew what my purpose was. And, and I think it's very normal for our purposes to evolve and change and shift, and for us to reinvent ourselves on the daily, for us to transform ourselves on the daily. It's just what happens in life, and I'm going through a transformation every year, that I find myself in this expansion of growth, because it's endless. But I think the hardest part was just really navigating this new territory of this newness, this lightness, this sort of flow energy that I was experiencing. I was literally experiencing the flow state just by being very attuned and very aligned with my spiritual practice. Now, that doesn't mean that life wasn't hard or I wasn't experiencing stress or difficulty. Absolutely. But I was able to self regulate. I know how to self-heal. I know how to self-regulate. This is what I've been trained in. This is what I've been taught, and this is what I teach people. And so in those moments when I feel myself and I see myself going into that same dark corner, that narrow cul-de-sac, that no exit space that I've been in many, many times, and it's very familiar because I recognize it in the sensations that I have in my body. I self regulate and I use my breath, which is always a bridge. It's the most fascinating thing about breath work. It's always a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. I come back to presence, which is always where I want it to be. But now I know the work and how the work works in bringing you to this state of, if we call it homeostasis, this state where we can just and flow ebb and flow.
Beautiful, ebbing and flowing like the sea. So, how do you self regulate then and use breath as a bridge?
Well, the first thing, whenever we are experiencing, say, we are experiencing stress, the first indicator will always be your breathing. And usually, when we are in a state of stress, which, if we look at it from how stress operates, is we are in the fight and flight part of the nervous system. This is the system where we may know it as our survival mechanism, and we protect ourselves in this state. And the key to getting into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is where we rest, where we digest, where we are more aligned. We're not very aligned when we are stressed and in the state of fight and flight. We use our breath as a way to allow us to move into that state of rest and digest, where we are in a space where we can allow whatever is being thrown at us, that we are no longer allowing ourselves to react to the concept that is thrown at us, but rather we allow ourselves to notice in that moment what we are experiencing. So maybe the stress starts to turn into frustration, irritation, anxiety, perhaps, anger, perhaps. And we start to notice, okay, this is what I'm experiencing, but this is not who I am. You are not stress. You are not anger. You are not depression. You are not anxiety. You are just simply experiencing it. And in order for us to experience it fully, we have to let whatever emotions that we are moving through to literally move through. Because if we're constantly pushing that away, what we are doing is we are either suppressing, we are either repressing, or we are in denial. And if we continue to operate that way, one day we're just going to explode. And in order for that explosion to not take place in such a dramatic way, daily regulation of just catching ourselves, not even noticing. I used to say, just notice. But now I'm really, allowing people and teaching people to catch in that moment. Oh, there it is. Oh, there's anxiety, my old friend. Oh, there's imposter syndrome. Oh, there's anger. There's my depression. I can feel that darkness coming in, but it is not you. It is just you experiencing it. So the easiest way is just to watch your breath. What happens to your breath? What happens to your heartbeat? How does your heart escalate into a higher kind of octave, and how to bring yourself back to this space of being neutral, where you are operating as the watcher. You are operating as the observer instead of the person who is reacting constantly to the stimulus that is being presented from the external life.
Yes.
There's many, many tools. I mean, I can teach you, but that really, if we're looking at something more practical, I would say that.
Yes, thank you. I love that, and the simplicity of it as well as the deep wisdom. It's something which, with the right guidance, every single person can access. And the way you describe it really reminds me of the Vipassana meditation courses that I've done. And I'm wondering whether that's been part of your practice or whether you've taken a different path, but this sense of connecting with everything that you feel and observing it and allowing it to flow through and not burying it so that it becomes something that you carry around with you.
Yes. So you caught me. I am a Vipassana meditator.
I thought I heard it.
Yes. Yeah. I've done 3 sits and I've done 1 serve. But yes, Vipassana does play a huge, huge part of my life. But what I wanted to mention also is, the very, like, I always look at life as a one big joke, and the very unfunny cosmic joke that we all may have experienced is that, in an attempt to protect ourselves from pain, is that we actually perpetuate behaviors that create the exact pain we are trying to avoid. And so within the Vipassana technique, as you know, we are just experiencing sensations in our body, and whatever that sensation is. So first we experience the very obvious sensation. So what is very obvious? So right now you may be experiencing perhaps some pulsation, vibration, maybe your palms are a little bit sweaty, maybe you notice a certain pain in your lower back or your shoulders or whatever. So those are sensations that are very on the gross level. If we get into the subtle level, which we cannot do in a moment, as you know, in Vipassana meditation, we are doing anapana technique, which is the breathing technique. We're only watching our breath for 3 days, for 3 whole days. That's 10 hours a day of sitting. That's 30 hours in the first part of Vipassana, where we are just regulating our breath in order to get deep, in order to get subtle. So when we go subtle, we start to experience many, many things that we have heard of and sounds great, right? Flow sounds great. Being in ease sounds great. Enlightenment sounds great. But what does those things actually mean? And so in Vipassana, we go into the experiential level where we are literally experiencing this phenomenon within us. And as we move through our practice, our meditation practice, so sitting daily, of course, it needs to be a practice that is a continuum. We start to kind of open these doors of possibility. And the key that we look for these doors in, some relationship or in a career or validation or enoughness, that key is really within ourselves. And we start to understand on an experiential level, not on just an intellectual level. This is why I really love Vipassana, because you experience it, is that we are our own gatekeepers of this key that we're looking for outside. And that's a funny joke, is that we're just looking outside for the key that's actually within us. And so if we can find these tools and techniques that show us that we are the person that we are waiting for, magic happens in that moment.
Yes, I love that, how you talk about the importance of actually experiencing and not just intellectually understanding. And I think that that is really a key for all development, all personal growth, that there are so many concepts that we come to intellectually understand, but until we've experienced them, it's not something that we can take forward and integrate into our lives. So I love that you brought that up. If you enjoy Going Conscious, please subscribe for a new episode every Wednesday. If you think your friends and networks would benefit from listening, please share this podcast of fulfillment and freedom with them. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review. It's great to read what you think, and your support makes a big difference. Together, let's grow our courage and tools to transform and live the lives we really want to. As well as creating Going Conscious, I work as a transformation coach and conscious brand consultant. I'm on a mission to help holistically maximize conscious entrepreneurs to drive positive changes for themselves, others, and the planet. I can help you to transition and level up personally, and I can help your brand grow and make a bigger impact. To connect with me and find out more about how we can work together, find me on Instagram @NikkiTrott or on my website nikkitrott.com. Please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you, and let's talk about your path of growth and development. And I want to ask you about your Heal Yourself method, which you teach all over the world in classes and workshops and retreats. And I know that it combines science and spirituality. Would love to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Heal Yourself method actually started when about eight and a half, almost 9 years ago, while I was moving through a huge transition of healing myself. And as someone who only teaches the practices that have, completely changed my life around, I wanted to create a method that truly allowed people, especially yoga practitioners at that time, which has evolved now into many different kind of areas, is to go within. Because within the yoga practice, it was all about the external of the shape, right? The pose. But what about the shape of our emotions? What about the shape of our stories? What about the shape that we have allowed ourselves to get really familiar with, that we're doing the same thing over and over and over again and just calling it fate, or this is just my life, or this is the way I am? So combining breath work, combining meditation, combining the physical shapes of yoga, combining sound, kirtan specifically, so mantra work, and using mantras and sound as a way to shift the consciousness of the chanter, and combining all of that into one sort of hodgepodge. I decided to call it Heal Yourself. And it's really going inside and then going outside. Whereas oftentimes we may see in yoga, we're trying to get aligned physically, right? Aligning our bones and whatnot, and then going inside. But this is actually doing the complete opposite, where we are healing from within first. And from that healing within, it is that light and that radiance and that essence that we start to illuminate outwards. And people know that energy. People feel that energy. So going inside is really the work. Shadow work is the work. When we talk about, what is the work is not easy. The work is hard. The work tears you apart. The work is, yes, it's scary, but without doing the work, without truly getting honest and getting clear about what needs to change in your life, what needs to happen in order for you to live this life being so fulfilled in what you do, waking up every day in gratitude, in appreciation, in abundance. Even if you may not feel that abundant, the world is abundant, the universe is abundant, is really allowing yourself to get into that deep end and familiarize yourself with the essence of what it truly means to heal from the inside out. So that's now moved into more of, somatic work, which is really understanding the language of the body, language of energy. And I'm certain as I grow as an individual and as a teacher and as a mentor, that the Heal Yourself method is really going to shift as well. But right now, as we speak, I've also added something into the Heal Yourself method where I call it Heal Yourself, Heal Your Business. As a spiritual business mentor, I see over and over again that with the women that I work with, there's a lot of stories and baggage that we hold that prevents us from creating this abundant business that is so available to every single person. But within our stories, we have to heal them in order to heal ourselves. So now it's kind of like heal yourself, heal your business.
I love that. I love that. Heal yourself and heal your business. I agree so much. And that's what I've experienced in my own journey. And then also with the women who I work with, the conscious entrepreneurs who I help, to develop their own mindset and their business strategies. I've found again and again that it's really about getting rid of the blockers, the baggage, as you call it, the limiting beliefs, the self-sabotage, all of the things and fears that stand in our way to then be able to succeed. There's no point having a super sound strategy if you've got all these blockers in your mindset and in yourself. It just won't
it won't happen. And so I love that you bring those things together. That's amazing.
I strategy, in my practice is nothing without spirituality. And this is what I mean by being so spiritually secure in yourself, within your spiritual practice, with is everything that you just spoke about, and more to that. Because when I hear women, oh, I'm really looking to work with someone who can help me in strategy, when we haven't even looked at our shadow, because we're so afraid. We haven't even looked at our finances. We haven't even dared to look at our bank account because we are avoiding that, or we haven't dared to look at what imposter syndrome is and why it keeps coming up, and why we are in this dialogue of I'm never going to be enough, I'm just not good enough, why should I start, everyone's doing an online business, why am I different, and these stories that I just keep hearing and hearing and hearing, and I just want to shake these women, and I want to give them a mirror, to look in the mirror, to see their inner child, to see themselves, to get even more curious about what is holding them back, because they have this unlimited potential of power, and they are just scraping by because they want to learn a new strategy.
Yes, yes.
And so my work is really getting deep into that spiritual security in order to create whatever freedom you're looking for. Financial freedom, especially financial freedom.
Yes, I love that. I love how you call it spiritual security as well. It's so clear and really resonates. And I agree so deeply that we need to have our spirituality in place to then underpin everything that we do in our lives. And our business is an expression of our spirituality in the end. And so it's up to us to create the container that we want that to grow from. So yes, love what you're saying, agree very much with it. And it was really hard for me to move in my own life from that sense of strategy. Everything was about strategy, and then to move into the self and into that healing mindset, and then to connect those things together. And I think it's easy to be, developing yourself spiritually in your personal life and then caught in old patterns in business. But once we start connecting them together, that's when we really see big changes.
Yeah, and this also really connects with frequency. For me, my strategy is deeply influenced by my energy. And my energy is really deeply influenced by my spiritual practice. But there's this force that really flows through us. And it's really the essence of who we are. And that force, I always feel that that force is the highest level of frequency that I'm looking for in order to influence my strategy. And that force is what we call universal intelligence. And that is something that no one can really teach you. Now, I honor those who are teaching strategy, and I think there's a job for every single person, and there's a purpose for every single person. However, when I worked with strategy, because I am so connected to energy, and I'm so connected to allowing my frequency to operate in a way that I feel very congruent, very aligned, very attuned, very tapped in and turned on. I cannot just follow a strategy if my energy is not feeling it. And so, looking at it from this kind of lens, it's a very different lens, but it's the lens that I've created this, I like to call, my empire, because I created it simply just by being attuned. I've created this business by intuition. I've created this business. Yes, I've hired mentors and business coaches with a sense of strategy, but they have also been very connected to this universal intelligence that is operating this cosmic this cosmic plan for each and every one of us. So for me, strategy doesn't work with spirituality, and my energy plays a huge part in the decisions that I take, that allows me to flow through every single thing that I'm moving through. And I think for the listener here, being in that as a conscious entrepreneur, fempreneur, spiritualpreneur, whatever you want to call it, the essence of being a conscious business is that, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Wow, we could dive into so much around this, but as our time is coming to the end, we'll have to do another conversation, B. There's so much more to talk about. Now, I would love to ask you, as you made the big change from the fashion industry to where you are now, what does success look like to you now, and how has this changed?
Success, honestly, success for me is doing what I love and at the same time helping people, truly helping people who are in the same position that I was once in. Because I know this woman, I know her, I get her, I was her. And success for me is really helping her to move into this new dimension of possibility where everything is possible.
Beautiful.
I have built, my business from a place of zero, like literally zero, zero. And so I know what it takes in order to amplify. And that amplification is by simplifying, which you had mentioned earlier on the podcast. Simple techniques, simple solutions. It doesn't have to be that hard. I don't know why we keep believing that we have to work harder, that we have to make things harder for ourselves. We just have to go back to simplicity. Success for me is waking up having a purpose. Success for me is waking up with my partner that I'm absolutely in love with. Success for me is helping women change their mindset, change their emotional intelligence, change their frequency. Success for me is waking up and saying, wow, it's a new day. I get to do what I love today once again. So I never ever take life for granted because life is too short. And if I were to move into, a loss of life, I could say right now that I have done everything that I've wanted to do in this moment. And I have much more to go. But when you are so bold in taking those risks that scare you, and you do that over and over and over, nothing scares you. So for me, success is literally living life as the being that I am in all of its essence, in gratitude, in appreciation, and in a sense of mystery, because it is such a mystical life that your day today can be completely shifted tomorrow only if you dare.
I love that. Only if you dare. Very powerful words. Thank you, B. And as we come to a close, is there a book that you've read recently or something that's made a big impact on you, which you would like to share with us?
One of the greatest books that I have read, and I've read it twice now, is a book by David Hawkins, David Hawkins, called Letting Go. And this book explains the levels of consciousness that we as human beings move through. And there is a level of consciousness that completely moves you into higher states of frequency, which is courage. Courage is the threshold. So when I say dare, that's where we dare. We dare when we are courageous, which doesn't mean that we are not fearful. You can still feel fear, but still be courageous. When you move into that threshold, life gets really interesting. And for those of us who may be living within the lower emotions, such as guilt, apathy, fear, doubt, all of that, the book explains what happens to you, not only internally, but also externally. So again, you have the power to heal yourself. You have the capacity to change your life. You have the power to shift only if you are willing, keyword willing, to go within.
Amazing. Sounds great. Thank you so much. And lastly, B, where is the best place for our listeners to find you and your work online?
Nikki, thank you so much for having me. Truly, it's been such a treat speaking with you. You can just go onto my website, bbosnack.com, or find me on Instagram at bbosnack.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I've loved our conversation, B, and there's so many more things I would love to discuss with you. But for now, thank you so much and see you soon.
See you soon, Nikki. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with the wonderful Bee. I love how she talks about going inwards and discovering your own power to heal and transform your life. We've talked a lot on Going Conscious recently about going inwards, and especially at this time, it's something that can be so important when so many people in the world are on a journey inwards. We learn to listen to the messages that come through our body, and it's incredible and sometimes courageous to reclaim our power and take our healing journey into our own hands for both mind and body. Bea talks about how transformative it can be to connect with our breath, which I deeply agree with. If you want to find out more about breathwork, check out the 2 Going Conscious episodes so far that I've created with breathworkers, episode 20 with Richard and 9 with Sasha. You will be amazed at how incredible the breath is in transforming our reality and our lives. I really enjoyed hearing about how Bea brings spirituality together with business in how she works with her clients. I truly believe that this is the new way of creating success, as I work with my clients in a different way, but which also brings together these 2 sides. For me, it's mindset and strategy. It's like night and day, the 2 sides to our existence, the internal and the external, which we need to work together in harmony to be able to succeed. When we treat these 2 sides as completely separate, we keep tripping up. So I'm really excited to see where we take our clients, where we have spiritual and conscious, different approaches to both, and how they come together with business. It's a really exciting time, and I do believe that the future of success is driven by purpose. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe now. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating and short review. If you think people you know might benefit from listening to Going Conscious, please share it with them. I know I get much of my inspiration from podcasts which are shared with me. For all episodes, our library and more, visit goingconscious.com. Your support to spread this positive message of fulfillment and freedom means so much. As well as hosting Going Conscious, I help conscious entrepreneurs to transition and unleash their power and purpose with my transformation coaching and conscious brand consulting work. Discover more on Instagram at NikkiTrot or on my website, nikkitrot.com. I'd love to hear from you and to talk about your goals, questions, or how we can work together. And if I don't hear from you before then, see you next Wednesday on the next episode of Going Conscious. As always, live your freedom.